house on Ravenswood Lane, in the small Yorkshire village of Millbrook, where the fog never quite lifted, there stood an old house, Ravenswood Manor. Villagers quickened their pace whenever they passed it, and no one lingered long enough to look at it twice. Charlotte Whitmore was its new mistress. After her grandfather, Edmund Whitmore, passed away, his will left her the manor, along with a single note that read, "Never open the cellar door." Charlotte, a 27-year-old architect from London, had little patience for superstition. She assumed it was simply the ramblings of an old man's final days. That evening, she arrived at the manor with her fiancé, James Ashworth, intending to assess the place before putting it up for sale. The front door was made of heavy oak, and the moment she turned the key, it swung inward on its own, as though something inside had been waiting. James laughed it off. "Old hinges, that's all," but Charlotte caught something odd in the cold draft that slipped out to meet them, as if the house itself had just exhaled. Inside, everything remained exactly as her grandfather had left it. Faded portraits lined the walls, dust coated the bookshelves, and a grand staircase climbed upward into darkness. Aside from the ticking of an old clock, the silence was absolute, the kind of silence that rings in your ears. By nightfall, they'd decided to stay. A bed was made up in a first-floor room. James drifted off quickly, but sleep eluded Charlotte. Around 1 in the morning, she heard footsteps below, slow, heavy, as though someone were walking barefoot across stone. She rose, lit a candle, and made her way to the staircase. Below, in the dark, the cellar door, heavy oak, once secured by a solid lock, stood slightly ajar. The lock lay on the floor, not broken, but as if someone had opened it from the inside. Her heart pounded. Her grandfather's note echoed in her mind. Never open the cellar door. She reached to pull it shut, but the moment her fingers touched the wood, a whisper drifted out from the darkness. A woman's voice, barely audible. "Charlotte, you've finally come." She fled back up the stairs. In the bedroom, she shook James awake, and as she turned, a shadow stood in the doorway. Tall, thin, faceless. Then, like smoke, it was gone. The next morning, Charlotte told James what had happened. He brushed it off at first. "You were exhausted. It was a dream." But when they went down to check the cellar, the broken lock lay exactly where she'd said. His expression turned serious. They drove into the village and called on the old vicar, Father Nathaniel Gray, who had served Millbrook's church for 40 years. The moment Charlotte mentioned Ravenswood Manor, the color drained from his face. "A woman lived there 100 years ago," he said. "Eleanor Blackwood. The most beautiful girl in the county, they say, until her fiancé jilted her the night before their wedding and ran off with another woman." Father Gray went on. "Eleanor descended into the cellar that same night and locked herself in. She refused food, consumed by grief and rage, until death finally claimed her. Her body was found weeks later, and ever since, every owner of the house has suffered some misfortune. Some vanished, some lost their minds, and Edmund Whitmore himself had spent his last decade living alone behind locked doors. She waits," Father Gray whispered, "for a couple on the edge of marriage. She can't bear the thought of anyone else's happiness completing itself when hers never did. Charlotte's stomach dropped. She and James were due to buy an engagement ring within the month. Suddenly, the whisper from the night before, "You've finally come here," took on a horrible new meaning. James insisted they leave for London that very evening. But as they drove back toward the manor, their car simply stopped, the engine dead for no reason at all. Their phones had no signal. The sun was setting, and walking back to the village through the darkening woods no longer felt safe. Reluctantly, they spent another night at the manor. This time they checked every door, wedging a heavy cabinet against the cellar entrance. But in the dead silence of the night, Charlotte heard it again, footsteps, this time climbing the staircase, slow and deliberate. 1, 2, 3, each step making the old wood groan. James crept to the door and peered through the gap. A shadow moved along the staircase walls, had long hair, a torn white dress, climbing steadily upward, as though searching for someone. James slammed the door shut and braced a heavy wooden chair against it. Charlotte huddled in the corner, breathing hard. Outside in the corridor, the footsteps stopped directly in front of the door. Then silence. A deep, terrible silence, far more frightening than any noise could have been. Moments later, a faint scratching sound scraped down the wood, as though long nails were dragging slowly downward. Charlotte squeezed her eyes shut and prayed silently. Then just as suddenly the sound stopped. The clock struck 2. James glanced out the window. In the garden below, through the fog, a white figure stood perfectly still, as if staring up at the house. In the blink of an eye, it vanished. Come morning, the two of them resolved to put an end to it. In her grandfather's study, Charlotte found an old diary, its pages yellowed with age. It was Edmund Whitmore's handwriting. He'd written that every year, on the anniversary of Eleanor's death, he would light a candle in the cellar and leave her unfinished wedding ring there as an apology. As long as the ring stays there, he'd written, she remains calm. But if the ring is ever moved, the next page was torn out. Charlotte remembered. The day before, near the broken lock, something had glinted on the cellar floor. Perhaps it was the ring. They decided they had to go down and return it to its place. However frightened they were, in the full light of midday, they gathered their courage and opened the cellar door. The stairs descended into darkness, and the air carried a strange, stale sweetness, dried flowers and old candle wax. At the bottom, in the center of the cellar, stood an old wooden chair, and before it, a small table bearing a torn white wedding gown, thick with dust. On the floor directly beneath the chair, a small gold ring caught the light. James reached down to pick it up, and the chair moved on its own, as though someone had just risen from it. Charlotte screamed and stumbled backward. Candles she hadn't noticed, dozens of them, old and half-melted, lining the cellar walls, began igniting one by one with no flame to light them. Light spread through the room, and in that glow, behind the chair, a figure emerged. Eleanor Blackwood. Her face was young, but her eyes were hollow, black as if centuries of grief had pooled within them. Her voice came low and broken. You touched my ring. I have waited here 100 years. And you've come to steal my happiness just as he did. James pulled Charlotte behind him. We don't want to take anything from you, he said, his voice trembling. We only came to return the ring, Edmund. He did this for you every year, didn't he? He never forgot you. Eleanor's figure went still for a moment. Something shifted in her eyes, the fury giving way to a deep sorrow. Edmund. He was a good man. He apologized to me every single year, but he's gone too now, and I fear everyone will forget me, that my pain will simply crumble to dust. Charlotte found her courage and stepped forward. With trembling hands, she lifted the ring and gently placed it back on the table, beside the gown. We'll remember you, she said. We won't sell this house. We'll restore it, make it a place of peace for you. Your story won't be buried here. The air in the room shifted. The candle flame steadied. Eleanor's figure began to fade, and one last time her voice echoed, softer now, almost like a blessing. Then perhaps I can finally rest. A cold gust swept through the cellar, extinguishing every candle at once, and the room fell back into darkness but this time, the darkness didn't feel frightening. It felt peaceful. James and Charlotte ran up the stairs, shut the door behind them, and stepped outside into the garden to breathe the open air. The sun was setting, but for the first time, the manor felt calm, as if even its walls had exhaled in relief. Over the following weeks, Charlotte and James abandoned any thought of selling Ravenswood Manor. Instead, they began restoring it. The cellar was the first thing they repaired, the old chair and table removed, replaced with a small memorial space. A marble plaque was placed there reading, "In memory of Eleanor Blackwood, whose love was never finished, but whose memory now lives on forever." Father Nathaniel Gray blessed the space, and the villagers were astonished to learn that no more strange sounds came from Ravenswood Manor. The heavy, cold drafts at night were gone too. The house that had once been the village's symbol of dread slowly began reclaiming its old beauty. 6 months later, James and Charlotte were married in the manor's own garden, beneath a rose-covered arch, in the crisp, clean Yorkshire air. When the vicar asked, "Does anyone object to this union?" a faint, cool breeze passed through the air, the rose petals stirring gently, as though someone had exhaled a blessing. Charlotte smiled. She knew it wasn't a moment of fear. It was Eleanor's farewell. Even today, if you visit the village of Millbrook and ask about Ravenswood Manor, the locals will tell you it's now a beautiful, peaceful home. But they'll add quietly every year. On that one particular night, a faint candlelight flickers from the cellar, and the air fills with the gentle scent of roses. Perhaps Eleanor is still there and no longer in anger, but in peace, finally at rest, knowing her story was remembered. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments. Have you ever visited an old house where something felt not quite right?